Good afternoon in the East, good morning in the West. I'm Dick Farrel in for Mr. Weather Bull. And speaking of Weather Bull, we'll talk about the weather later. A lot to talk about today. Got a guest coming up in the first segment. Want you to hear from him. Some of the places we'll visit during this edition of the Brett Winterville Show. Radio guy Dick Farrel filling in. We're going to talk about some interesting things like there's a family in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, that has a big sign on their lawn. It just says Jesus. And for some of the neighbors, that's a problem. I don't understand it, but we'll find out what it's about. There's a huge exodus of people from the blue states to the red states. Talk about that, too. Global warming's on our list for today. Plus a report that illegal aliens are committing more crimes against Americans than ever before. It's just out from the Justice Department. We'll hear about Sheila Jackson Lee and her airplane experience, where now she says it was racism. I'm starting to wonder. Everything must be racism these days. And there's a whole lot of other stuff, like former Congressman John LeBoutelier, who says that we ought to have a complete accounting of where the money's going that is paid for defending congressmen from sexual harassment lawsuits. And he says if we do, we'll probably lose about another 20 congressmen. And speaking of sexual harassment, Joy Villa is going after Corey Lewandowski for sexual harassment as well. The price of oil way up because the dollar is down, but I understand the dollar being down is good for Americans. I don't understand it, but maybe we'll try to find out. That and more, plus all of the accomplishments of the Obama administration that liberals say means success, but in reality, they're a disaster. And we'll also show you that in the course of a year, Donald Trump has done more than Obama did in 8 years. But first, we have a very special guest in the studio, a man who was filled in on my radio show when I couldn't be there. He's the author of several books, including this new one. Let's take a look at this new book that he has been peddling for the last 3 years. There was something in this book that struck me as rather strange. That's why I asked him to come in today. You remember last week we heard that the Obama administration may have been involved in allowing ISIS to transport illegal controlled substances into the United States, namely opioids. And if that's true, we've got a lot of worrying to do. But I thought to myself when I heard that, where did I read that before? Well, 3 years ago, the book Conversion Prophecy, Michael Solomon told us all about it. Only now we're waking up to the fact. Good afternoon, Michael. Glad you could be here.
It's a pleasure, Dick. It's always fun to be with you.
Always a pleasure to see an old buddy on TV. Before I get into this, I got to ask you about terrorism. We've had a very long Christmas holiday shopping season, a very successful one. MasterCard tells us the record sales for this year, all without even a hint of a terrorist tragedy anywhere in the USA. To what do you owe that?
Well, you know, I think the intelligence of the local police departments and the big city police departments is helping. The intelligence we're finally seeing coming out of the FBI and NSA and everybody else is certainly helping that. We're really on top of it. And it's extraordinary, what I call selective enforcement. And what I mean by that is they put barricades up around the big city areas. They have traffic barricades around Times Square, around St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, around other churches and other meeting places.
And that's a deterrent?
And well, it's a deterrent because they can't, you know, basically what they're using now is trucks and cars. And at least it prevents them from getting in. You know, we're moving resources around, and I think that's what's happening. And also the fact that we're going after ISIS, and I think the fact that President Trump has put the immigration holds on everything, that some of these people aren't getting in. Now, the internet, you know, they're getting in through the internet, they're getting in with their ideas and everything else.
Corrupting Americans.
Corrupting Americans. Well, you know, I look at it this way. To me, there's no such thing as homegrown terrorism, because if it starts on the other side and they're getting their orders from the other side, it's the same thing.
Right. Well, there was one terrorist attack in Melbourne, Australia, but Australian authorities say, oh, no, that was just an accident.
Well, it was a funny-looking accident. But
you know, if they don't wake up, who's going to wake them up? I'm telling you, if a terrorist event takes place and you want to call it something else, it's like standing outside in the rain and saying, oh, somebody's spitting on me.
Well, the other problem you got too, Dick, is you got political correctness. Everybody's afraid to say something because all of a sudden they're racially profiling. You can't. The San Bernardino, they were afraid to talk about the neighbors at the time, okay? My theory is very simple. I would rather say something and be wrong than not say something and be wrong.
I'm with you. The Democrat-leading states, we call them the blue states, are hemorrhaging hundreds of thousands of people just last year because of high crime, high taxes, and in some cases, lousy weather. But people are seeking greener pastures. The exodus of these residents, most pronounced in our hometown, Mike, New York City, which saw about 200,000 people leave between July of 2016 and July of 2017. Census Bureau data indicates last week that New York's demographics out-migration during that time period was about the same as it was the previous year. So we are hemorrhaging populations from the Northeast mostly, some of the Midwest, to the southern states, and from California to some of the western states. I think this has to do with the way the states are governing themselves, and the new tax bill, which came into law just before Christmas, as the president promised it would, is going to accelerate, or in the case of local governments in those blue states, exacerbate the problem. What say you?
Well, it's been going on for years, and the reason it's been going on for years is let's look at the political makeup of some of these states. You got New York, you got California, you've got Illinois, Massachusetts. Those are the highest tax states in America, and all the governors are Democrats. They're living under this Keynesian theory of tax and spend and borrow, and that's what's happening. And people are getting fed up.
It's a shell game.
Companies, exactly, and companies are moving out, taking their employees with them. It's cheaper to take their employees with them and pay for their relocation than to hire and train new people and start over somewhere else. And that's what they're doing. And the employees are happier. And here's what this new tax bill is doing. It's telling the states in plain English, especially now what they've limited the SALT deductions, the state and local tax deductions. They're telling the states, and they better wake up, get your fiscal house in order. And if they don't, there's going to be, the exodus now is going to triple by the end of next year.
I think 50 or 60 years from now, you could see a civil war. I mean, if the blue states are going to be bankrupt and have only poor people to support, and all the other states are doing well, it's nothing else but war. A civil war can come that way.
Well,
that's what brought on the last Civil War, economics.
Exactly. Everybody thought it had to do with the slaves.
No.
Slavery. It didn't have to do with slavery.
Slavery was going on for years.
It was economics in New York and
Right.
the Northeast, as opposed to people in the South doing the same work with
no pay.
No cost.
And after the Civil War, that's what happened in New York and Pennsylvania. They were paying 3 cents a day to 7-year-olds to work in factories. How is that different than slavery? Anyway.
Not much different at all.
So one question about the tax law. Will more people have more money by this time 8 years from now?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the New York Times put a tax calculator online about a week ago, and I figured it out on using 20 or 30 different scenarios, and every scenario I put in there, everybody saves between $1,500 and $2,200 in taxes. And when I look at the mainstream media saying, well, it's only going to help the rich because they're going to take their money, and instead of helping the poor, they're going to go out and buy bigger cars and build bigger houses and fancy boats. Who's going to build those cars and those boats and those houses?
Taxpayers, workers,
citizens.
People
who go out and get work. You know, right. I got to be honest with you. When I look at liberal economists, they make astrologists look like legitimate science.
Well, I've been there too. Let me ask you about the tax law. How soon do we see some of these increases? And what about the, well, for lack of a better word, the liberal suggestion that we're going to be paying more taxes in the long run?
Yeah, we're not going to. Well, first of all, they expire in 2027. We've got 10 years to make them permanent, and that can be done. Once we see the growth that's taking place, I estimate that we're going to see better than 4% GDP growth in the next quarter, guaranteed. Well, look what's happening now. We've got the lowest unemployment rate amongst blacks and Hispanics in 17 years. We've got the lowest unemployment rate alone in 18 years in this country.
Right.
The government's going to be collecting more money from lower taxes. Now, people say to me,
Ronald Reagan did it.
How can that be?
Jack Kennedy suggested.
Because if you've got 100 people paying 25% and we lower it to 20, but you put 50 more people back to work, you got 150 people paying 20%.
Right.
You're collecting more money.
It's very simple. Why doesn't the liberal media get that picture? What are they? Why can't they see the black and white of this?
Because they don't. They don't realize it.
When Nancy Pelosi gets on television and says, it's going to be Armageddon, she's calling it the death of the whole world. That's what this tax cut means to her, the death of the whole world? I mean, is that a stretch? How do you get on national TV and lie like that?
Well, you know, the problem is the people who are on TV, they've got out of journalism school, they got their
We're on TV too right now.
Right, exactly. But we're not journalists.
I know.
But I mean, we are in a sense, but we're not out there building the stories. But the problem is that these people, they've never worked for a living. They don't know what it is to build a business. They don't know what sweat equity is. They handed a script. They get on TV. They have their opinions, and they're reading everything out of a textbook from some economics professor in Harvard or Yale, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
I get a better response from using my Alexa. All right. Global warming. Ben Shapiro struck back at Neil deGrasse. Neil deGrasse made some nasty comment about the holidays and directed it at Ben Shapiro, and he struck back. One of the things about global warming is it's a myth. It's an absolute fraudulent, two-faced, phony prevarication. What do you discover?
It is the biggest scam than Bernie Madoff. I look at it from the scientific view. You know, there's two types of science in the world. Al Gore goes out there and he says the consensus of 97% of the scientists say. Well, that was out of 380 scientists, of which less than, I think it was 5 or 6 were climatologists. Consensus science is a theory. It's not been proven. There is science that has been proven. Let's look at Archimedes' theory. It's not a theory. Archimedes' principle of buoyancy. I mean, that's what
That's thousands of years ago.
Thousands of years, and that's science. I'll make a statement right now. The Arctic is not shrinking. I think we've got a graphic somewhere of the NASA photographs of the Arctic over the last 2 years. I don't know if they've got it up online, but the Arctic is not.
There we go.
There it is, right there. The Arctic Circle has grown 553,000 square miles of ice over the last year.
We're really heading toward a new ice age, really.
We're heading towards a new ice age. As a matter of fact, I was up in Alaska a couple of years, 2 years ago, and there was a scientist with us, and they said that the Hubble Glacier is growing so large that within 10 or 15 years, it's going to be blocking the sea lanes.
That's the danger.
But here's Archimedes' theory.
That's not a cause of global warming.
I'm going to make a statement, and people are going to laugh and say it can't be true. Yes, it is true. If all the sea ice floating in the Arctic Ocean melted tomorrow, we would lose nothing. We wouldn't lose a single half-inch of beachfront property.
We have only a few seconds, but we keep hearing that Miami will be underwater in 10 years.
There's a reason for that. The moon is 21,000 miles closer to the Earth than it's been since 1912. The high tides are higher. And Al Gore 3 weeks ago said on what Chris Wallace said, he saw fish swimming in the streets. Where are the pictures, Al? And how come you're not telling the public that the low tides are lower than usual because the moon is closer?
Michael Solomon, ladies and gentlemen, get the book if you haven't already. The Conversion Prophecy. We're coming back with more on the Brett Winterbill Show. I'm Dick Farrell, substituting for holiday time and having a great deal of fun doing it. I thank you, Mike. We'll be right back, so don't go away, otherwise I will. Welcome back to another special edition of America Talks Live. My name is Dick Farrell, helping to fill in during holiday time. Glad you could be here, and I'm glad I'm here with you. Something very important came across the wires this morning. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who a lot of people think isn't doing his job, he actually got down to business today, delivering remarks at the second U.S.-Mexico Strategic Dialogue on disrupting transitional criminal organizations and the State Department, December 14th. This week, the Justice Department and Department of Homeland Security released a report on the incarceration of foreign-born population. Now, this is important. More than 1 in 5 of all these federal inmates in the U.S. Bureau of Prisons are immigrants. As of the end of the fiscal year 2017, the federal report released Thursday tells us that it will be released on Thursday. The report also found that 94% of confirmed foreign-born inmates in the federal incarceration were in the country illegally. The Department of Justice, Homeland Security also issued their quarterly report measuring progress since January of last year, or 2017, ordered by the president to crack down on illegal immigration. The report also found that about 2/3 of all the immigrants in custody, Marshal Service, were in the United States illegally. This shows, quote, undeniably the need to secure the southern border with a wall and to prevent many of the crimes from occurring, end of quote, a senior administration official said. This is the third report since January, executive order regarding enforcement of immigration law. The report having been primarily a raw numerical data, is actually confirming foreign-born and illegal immigrants who are incarcerated. Officials said they hope future reports have a breakdown of specific crimes as well as information on state and local incarceration. So you see, much of the crime that we are sustaining in our big cities and elsewhere could be alleviated, done away with, make disappear by simply shutting the border down and preventing them from coming here in the first place. And I've always said, I don't know if you've heard me on my radio show, but I've always said for the last 25 years that what we need is border control, which will ultimately lead to crime control. They come here as an invading army. They are not seeking a better life. They're seeking to steal your better life. They come here, gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm here, you have to take care of me, and if you don't, I'll shoot you. There is no difference between our current immigration policies and an invading army, except an invading army comes wearing uniforms. They're armed. They have tanks, troops, airplanes, bombs, machine guns, and mortars, and rockets. The only difference is this invading army uses something else. They wear civilian clothes. They spread disease. Boy, that's a whole story on that one. They spread their lack of education, their illiteracy, and their crime. And they come here to take from Americans who have earned what they have. I don't know why our politicians want to allow this to continue. Certainly our president doesn't, and I'm with him on that. And you should be too. Why do you want someone from a foreign country coming here to take what you've earned? Can anybody explain that to me? It's never been explained. I've never understood it, but I hear it all the time, how we have to take care of these poor, innocent, invading enemies. We have a phone number in case you're interested in letting me know why you think we should. 1-877-639-7629. Maybe we can put that number up on the board so folks can actually see it. 1-877-639-7629. And maybe you could answer the question, why is it that we need to continue allowing the invasion of our country by an illegal alien army? An army which are armed with, like I said, disease, lack of education, and criminal behavior. Those are their weapons. And they have a fifth column helping them. They have inside help. That's known as the Democrat Party, which if you've heard people like Mayor de Blasio in New York and other politicians elsewhere, they believe that, quote unquote, America is for everybody. Well, it ain't for everybody, because Britain is for Britain, Germany is for Germans, Japan is for Japanese, and they're saying no more. Because what is a country that doesn't secure its borders, or doesn't protect its culture, or doesn't protect its language? It's not a country at all. Let's go to New York. Ian wants to try and answer that question. Ian, what do you think? Why must we continue to allow an invasion of our country?
Well, you have to break the law, obviously. Like, that's what liberals are good at. They like Kate Steinle. Here's a guy, if a gun fell out of my holster, hit the ground, went off accidentally and killed somebody, I'd be held responsible, as I should be. And here's a state that defies, like the state I live in, which this directly affects me. But I'd like to talk about the $26 billion, 10 years DACA. They said that would cost us. That's DACA. That's 1/10 of the illegals that are here. They say there's 12. I say there's 20 million. So
maybe more,
Jerry
maybe 30
Browns
million.
And people like this, let these people out, and they murder your daughters and your sons like Jameel Shaw. You people got to either get the hell out of that state, excuse my French there, but because that's
we
what
allow
your
that,
state's
or word of the
going
year.
to.
Thanks a lot, Ian. Glad you had what to say on this edition of America Talks Live. Joe in Texas, you had a chance to speak your mind here on America Talks Live. Good afternoon.
Good morning, my brother. It is afternoon in Texas. Okay, this is our difference between our new great white hope. God bless him and God bless us all. I voted for him. Yes, I did. And I voted for him because I'm one of the deplorables, as we are called. I tell you what, this is the difference between our great white hope and Obama. Oh, okay, Obama wanted to bring our nation to our knees. Now, Trump, the great white hope, Donald Trump, our president, wanted to bring our nation great again. Now, Obama did say, hey, you guys from Mexico, come on in. We've got all the food stamps, all the welfare, all the free phones you want. Come on in. Okay, brother, that's just the difference between our great white hope and Obama.
Thank you, Joe, from Texas, for that call. Also, in this segment, I wanted to point out that CNN was caught red-handed with fake news. We all know about this alleged magnolia tree that was on the White House lawn that's being cut down and taken out, and we were told that this is the work of Melania Trump. Well, guess what? False blame. The tree is dying and needs to be removed. Once again, CNN, I wonder who they're going to fire this time. They have been known to fire people because of the fake news that they've been disseminating. And you know, I hate to tell you this, but the Federal Communications Commission forbids the intentional dissemination of false propaganda and news. Problem is, CNN's on cable. They're not over the airwaves. The FCC governs the airwaves. So CNN could keep on lying and making stuff up. And there's a pure example of it. This is a dead tree that they tried to save years ago, and it's falling apart. And you know what? It happens to be the area where the media gathers during events on the White House lawn for shade. And if they left the tree up there, a wind might come along and blow down and take out some of those people in the media. We're doing it for the media's good. But they wanted to attack Melania Trump. Just the way it is. We have a news break coming up, and also on this show, we're going to go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, find out about the folks who don't like the name Jesus on their lawn. You know, I consider that anti-Semitism. Wait, what do you mean, Dick? What do you mean anti-Semitism? Jesus is Jewish. If you want to ban Jesus, you're attacking Jews. We'll take a look at that when we get back. Also, Corey Lewandowski has got his hands in the chopping block now. Apparently, he's been accused of sexual harassment. Hey, who hasn't been accused of sex? It's the Accusation of the Month award. We'll find out what that's all about. And Sheila Jackson Lee screaming, what else? Racism. We're coming back in about a minute or so, like about 3 minutes, this and more, and we'll take some more phone calls right here on America Talks Live on Newsmax TV. I'm Dick Farrell. Thanks for being here. Welcome back to America Talks Live. I'm Dick Farrell. You may recognize my voice from being on the radio. Some people actually have heard me, but most haven't, so welcome. Glad to be here. Glad you could be here with me. I have a correction to make. In the last hour, I excoriated the Clinton News Network, the CNN, by saying that they were the ones that reported Melania Trump wanted to chop down that tree. I made a mistake, and I want to correct it right here. It was Newsweek, another arm of the leftist media making something up that wasn't true. What the heck? It happens every day. Speaking of the leftist media, they told us for 8 years how glorious the president and his behavior and his policies and his administration was. We have a graphic here to show you. Let's see what the liberals call success. This is a look at the Obama administration's list of wonderful accomplishments in the course of 8 years, if we can show that to you. Here we go. Lowest economic growth in American history, record number of mass shootings, record number of terrorist attacks in our country, record number of people on food stamps, record high health insurance cost, record high national debt, worse rioting. Yeah, there were riots, remember? You forgot about those? Worst since 1967, the highest poverty level in American history, and there's more, way more than that. He squandered away some $10 trillion. And liberals in Congress are telling us it was just a great thing. It was successful. Let's talk about some of those successes. There was Solyndra, $500 million literally thrown out to the window. There was, remember cash for clunkers? What happened to that? And how about the bailout money for General Motors? All of it wasted. But we do have a little bit here to show you on some of the accomplishments by the Obama administration with Hillary's help and other people in that administration, like the Attorney General. Do we have that on the prompter for me? Is that visible? I want to take a look at that. Because when he first came into office, Mr. Obama was very cordial to the Russians. First act was to cancel President Bush's commitment to Poland and Czechoslovakia for their ballistic missile system defense. Yeah. And he was also, as his Secretary of State, which was Hillary, was to present Russia's foreign minister with a reset button because they thought we were, quote, too tough on the Russians. Stupid idea. From a television commercial, and misspelled the intended word in Russian. It was Obama who was caught on camera telling Russian President Medvedev to pass on a message to Putin to give him, quote, a little flexibility because I have one more election to get through. The media never asked about the flexibility or what it was for. Could you imagine Donald Trump asking a foreign leader to give him some wiggle room until the next election? The media would go crazy. Obama's disastrous start, the renegotiation with Russia that advanced Russia's nuclear development but curtailed ours. Hillary and Obama gave Putin 20% of America's uranium in one deal. Obama did nothing to stop Putin's aggressive actions in Crimea, which, of course, Maxine Waters called Korea. She said that the Russians attacked Korea. Remember that? Obama taking our troops out of Iraq left a vacuum filled by who? ISIS. But our president today, he was able to put ISIS away in less than a year. The Obama deal with Iran was huge for the Russians. I can't think of how Trump has given anything to Russia. In fact, there's a long list. But we'll take care of that coming up in the next break. Back in a moment here on America Talks Live.
The American people have very high standards for our government agencies, and to see people like these
are those agencies not living up to those standards?
Well, those aforementioned examples are really, really nerve-wracking to me and undermine my confidence that the agencies don't respect the Constitution and will not put the ends before the means.
That's a pretty broad brush you're painting with.
Yeah, but we've seen a lot of ends before the means culture, both out of the Obama administration, out of Hillary Clinton, you know, with her $84 million of potentially illegal campaign contributions, or the Clinton Foundation uranium one. We've got people need a good, clean government.
People need to have a really clean government. You know, that statement by Congressman Frank Rooney tells me, and again, you have to be almost as old as I am to remember this, and I'm 61. There was a time when Richard Nixon got in front of the TV cameras and says, the American people have to know their president is not a crook. You remember that? Anybody remember that? We should have had it ready to spin for this moment, but the important thing is if the president of the United States 45, 50 years ago says the people have to know their president is not a crook, what Congressman Rooney is saying there is America needs to know its government is operating honestly, in the clear, in the pink, being honest with the people who elected them. And it tells me if a congressman says that they're not, we are in deep trouble, my friends. So Rooney says it's time for us to purge the FBI, the Justice Department in general, and Homeland Security. His belief in a statement that he made, in addition to what you heard him say here, was that it's time to drain the swamp and start with the FBI. I can't argue with that. I got to tell you, my perception is that one of the things Donald Trump has done wrong, and I can find a few things he's done wrong, one of them is he has not sufficiently drained the swamp. He has left too many Obama holdovers in key government posts, and that's what's harming him. I think it's time for a big house cleaning. He said he'd drain the swamp. He's got to drain the swamp from the top down. Remember earlier in the year we were hearing about all these leaks all over the White House? This one's leaking out, that one's leaking out. And there were a couple of departures early on and then a couple of new arrivals early on. Well, the time has come to make sure that we have our policy that we elected in the name of Donald Trump, and he needs to have the people in charge who are going to carry out that policy. And what Congressman Rooney here has told us is that he doesn't believe government is acting honestly with the people that pay their salary. Do you? We have a caller. We still have that caller online from, okay. If, again, you want to comment on anything I'm talking about, 1-877-639-7629. And we'll be very careful and delicate with you, unlike I would if I was on a talk radio show, where I just scream, holler, rant, and rave, and hang up the phone when I don't like what you say. I won't do that. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a very storied location in the Northeast. Major battle fought there in 1863, just before the 4th of July, between North and Southern forces, over a, believe it or not, what turned out to be a shoe factory. There is a sign on a lawn that is offensive. The sign says, Jesus. Now, why is that offensive to have a sign that says Jesus on your lawn at Christmas time? Although it's not Christmas anymore, it is still, quote, Christmas time. The family in Pennsylvania says, the family in Pennsylvania believes that they have a right to put this on their lawn. But some of their neighbors are arguing with them, telling them that they don't, even though they claim to, quote, have been raised Christian. How can you be raised Christian and object to the name of Jesus? To be a Christian means to follow Christ. Well, I have another take on it. And my take is, if you are objecting to Jesus, you're objecting to Jews as well as Christians. Jerry in Virginia, we got a few minutes to hear what you have to say. What's on your mind on America Talks Live?
Hey, first of all, the number one reason why the Dems want the illegals in, votes. That's it. They don't give a damn about them. They want their citizenship. They want everything just for the votes.
Your observation is correct, but it's only partially correct. They want the votes. They know that bringing in illegal aliens and making them vote will be the way that they will secure their future from time immemorial. He is absolutely correct when it comes to that. Also, aside from the Jesus story I was pointing out before, when you hear people objecting to Christianity, you got to think about how Christianity was born. It was born from Judaism. All those people you see on the manger scene, they're all Jews. All of the prophets, all of the disciples, all of the apostles, all of them were all Jews. In fact, when Jesus was crucified, he was Jewish. When he was resurrected, he was Jewish. When he was ascended to heaven, he was still Jewish and will always be. So if you object to Christianity, you're also anti-Semitic. That is my perception. Anyway, this segment is over. We'll be right back here at America Talks Live. Whatever you do, don't go away. I'll be looking for you to stay right where you are, and I promise to stay right where I am. I'm so glad you made it back. Yes, welcome back to, or welcome into, America Talks Live. My name is Dick Farrel, in for Brett Winterbull. Glad you can make it, and I'm certainly glad to be here with you. You may remember in 1990, the Baseball All-Star Game was played in San Diego. Of course, if you're not 30 years old or older, you don't remember it. At that baseball game, a very overweight, slothful-looking drug addict sang the national anthem and destroyed it. Utterly decimated its worth and meaning. Her name was Roseanne Barr. After this awful rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner, she proceeded to spit on the ground. But a decade, a generation later, Roseanne Barr is now a patriot and a hero. Apparently, Roseanne is calling for a boycott of the, quote, bigot singer who canceled the Israeli concert after left-wing pressure made her do it. Her name is Lorde, spelled L-O-R-D-E. I guess we should pronounce it Lordy. I never heard of her until today, or maybe a couple of days ago. To me, she's a nobody. Who cares? So she's not going to perform in Israel. Big deal. But I take my hat off to Roseanne Barr, a rare Hollywood person defending and supporting patriotism and what's right. Ken in Illinois, welcome to America Talks Live.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Hey, I'm very proud of you. You're the first news person that I have ever heard clarify that Jesus is a Jew. And if you're a Christian, then you support the Jewish beliefs and that. And I'm very proud of you. And yes, I am a born-again Christian. I was saved when I was about 10 years old. I was filled with the Holy Ghost when I was 11 years old. And I had an experience at 17 years old that was unreal. Picture of praising the Lord and seeing Him. I have talked to God many times. Saved my life. I was a truck driver, worked in a lumber yard. I was a bus driver for 30 years.
Ken, I appreciate that. I appreciate your call, and I appreciate your accolades. They are very true and very worthy. And I also want to point out that Jesse Lee Peterson also references Jesus as Jewish on this very network right before the show was even on the air today. Hey, we're back in just a few minutes. Don't go away. I've got a lot more to talk to you about, including South Korea. Ooh, that's going to be some story. Welcome back in to America Talks Live. I'm Dick Farrell, substituting for Mr. Winterbull, who's on vacation. I'll be off tomorrow, back on Friday, so make plans to join me. South Korea says that there's some risk involved, or rather Japan says there's risk involved if South Korea changes their policy regarding the 2015 law that they passed involving the so-called comfort women. These were the women who, by the way, were doing sexual favors for Japanese soldiers during World War II. We have to keep our eye on that. By the way, to get in touch with me, I'd like you to do it. I'm at Talk Radio King on Twitter, at Talk Radio King. That's what I call myself. Ron Paul is talking like a camel, relieving himself inside of a tent. He's telling us that the 2018 elections are going to be a disaster. We'll cover that Friday, and much more. I want to thank Kitty Farley for the excellent makeup job. I would really look awful if she hadn't done the makeup today. I'll be back Friday. Looking forward to seeing you. We ought to have a good time. Stay tuned next. There's a news break, followed by another great show on America Talks Live with former Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. Until Friday, have yourself a great day. I'll see you then.